There's a very beautiful verse in the Quran in the last page of Surah Taha where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, and whomsoever sways away from my remembrance, whomsoever diverts. The word a'rad means for you to turn your back away from Allah, to turn yourself away from the truth after it has been revealed and anchored to you that it is the truth and there's no doubt about it. What does Allah promise? فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكًا. Then for you is a depressed life, a life of despondency, a life of fear, a life of things not working out, a life that is disheveled, that is disorganized, that is filled with crevices and porous to so many more painful strokes. You know what came to mind today, subhanAllah, as I was thinking about this verse? Actually, I thought about a thought, and then I connected that thought to a verse. And I thought it was very fruitful for me to share. You know what's so funny? As Muslims, we turn our back away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in pursuit of our desires, our sinful desires, or breaking away from faith when we found faith onto a pathway that is not faithful to Allah, in hope that when we turn away from Allah, we're going to, quote-unquote, find ourselves again. We're going to, quote-unquote, feel happier again. We are, quote-unquote, doing me. We are, quote-unquote, trying to explore the opportunities that I've never explored. It's like the idea that leaving Allah somehow is supposed to create and metamorphosize this ideology within your mind that things are going to become a lot better, a lot happier, a lot livelier, a lot lovelier. And the reality of that, brothers and sisters in Islam, is the following. That when you remove yourself from Allah Azza wa Jal, the truth, the one and only truth, you actually find nothing but depression. You find nothing but sadness. You find nothing but grievances. You find nothing but grief, and grief of unspeakable levels to an extent where the abyss in and of itself doesn't even provide you with some kind of sunlight to see the slightest opening out from that darkness. And the reality of that too is that as Muslims, we have this idea that when things are well, I'm going to do well and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or I'm just going to take faith very lightly. But when things don't work out, then we're going to take faith a lot more strongly, a lot more adversely, a lot more power, with a lot more powerfully. And the idea behind that, brother and sister in Islam, is that when you lose touch with faith as a whole, things don't get better. Wallahi, things don't get better. You know how many people I've seen leave faith after they've been with faith and they've realized and they've said that there's nothing on earth that will beat faith. And there came a time where they left faith because of a personal event, and they only became more upset. They became more sad. They became more saddening to themselves and saddening to those around them. They became more hurt and striked with pain unlike any time before. And you know what's so ironic about the idea of leaving faith in hope of finding something better than faith when you go through this personal event that throws you off guard? It's the idea that when you are with faith, Allah still requires righteousness. Allah still requires for you to be with Him. Allah still requires for you to worship Him so that you could holster and harvest the goodness of your time in this dunya, so that it saves you from all the calamities of this dunya and it saves you from the adverse effects of a ruinous hereafter. And on the same token, when things don't go your way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still expects of you to still remain with Him. So it's so ironic that as Muslims, subhanAllah, and I found it so strange tonight. It's so ironic as Muslims and rhetorical in its nature that we think that there's a better way other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when things don't go right, when in fact Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether things go right or don't go right in your life, you still require Allah, and the end of the fate of that matter rests with Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. So brother and sister in Islam, I'm not here trying to force you back to Allah, wallahi. I'm not here trying to preach and show you that you're wrong or that you have misunderstood yourself or misunderstood the reality of life. I'm here just to pose a rhetorical question to you, or a question, inshallah, for us to think about. Through the pain of what you're going through, and through the disgruntled nature of your being. And after having realized that with Allah, you felt better, you felt a sense of calm and stability, do you feel that the current state of where you are away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing you any better than that state that you had with Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala that gave you some kind of calmness, some kind of stability, some kind of perspective, some kind of know-how, some kind of room to breathe and to see at least where you're going? That's the question, inshallah, that I leave with you. If you've answered to the latter, then dear brother and sister in Islam, that is only the nature of our being that's calling us to really understand that the nature of our being truly needs a superior other to depend and rely upon, because on your own you will break so badly, wallahi. You will be the most depressed, the most sad, the most grief-stricken individual on the face of this planet the moment you decide to leave Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the reason being is the following. Allah created us to always rely on something more powerful. Allah created us to rely on something more stronger, something more colossal, prodigious. And once we don't find that pathway or that foundation to rely upon, that's when we start seeking other avenues that we think are beneficial to us, but are indeed the cornerstone of every evil that will happen as a result. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us rahmah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us with Him, because we live in a time where it's become so easy for us to leave Allah. We've come to a time where it's become so easy for us to leave Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and think that there's something better. And wallahi, brother and sister in Islam, let me save you the race. You could run and run and run and run. You can try every haram. You can try every desire. But the end of the matter is the following. You need something powerful. You need something stronger than the pain that you're going through, and you need something that isn't quote-unquote considered or called human. You need something that is called a superior being, and that superior being is Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala.